Have you ever felt like the whole hiring process is just this giant black box? Like you're playing a game, but nobody ever told you the rules? Well, today, we're going to crack that box wide open. We're about to bust the biggest myths in HR, networking, and salary negotiation, and we're doing it with secrets from someone who spent years on the inside.
So, who's pulling back the curtain for us? Meet Daniel Space. He's a former HR business partner for huge companies like Spotify and WebMD. And look, he's not just some career coach guessing how things work. He was the guy literally signing off on the offers. He's seen it all, and he's here to tell us how it really goes down.
Here's a quick look at what we're going to cover. First, we'll get that insider's view from HR. Then we're going to tear down the myths one by one. Cold networking, all that paperwork, and of course the big one, the lowball salary offer. Then we'll finish up with a super powerful negotiation strategy and the one key takeaway you need to remember.
So let's start with that view from the inside. We're learning from someone who wasn't just on the sidelines. He was in the trenches, building teams and managing pay at some of the biggest names out there. He knows what works and what absolutely doesn't.
First myth up, networking. We've all heard it, right? Some influencer tells you to just fire off hundreds of LinkedIn messages to strangers who went to your college. But let's be real for a second. Does that spray and pray method actually land you a job?
Well, here's the difference, and it is huge. The wrong way makes you, as Daniel says, candidate 1100 who wants a job. You're just another notification. But the right way, that's about playing the long game. It's about building real relationships so that people actually want to champion you.
So how do you actually do that? This strategy is just brilliant. Daniel tells this story about a candidate who reached out to him after she got rejected. She didn't ask for another chance, she asked about his career. They had a few coffee chats over time, and a real professional relationship started to form. He wasn't just some contact to be used, he became her champion.
And how long did this take? 3 months. Look, this isn't a quick hack, it's a patient strategy. But the result is you have someone in your corner, someone who actually believes in you and is actively looking out for you. And that is way, way more powerful than any cold message you could ever send. Okay, next up, the paperwork myth. I mean, we spend hours polishing that perfect cover letter, right? And then we stress about writing the perfect thank you note after the interview. But in today's world of high-speed hiring, does any of that stuff actually move the needle?
Here's the blunt truth. At most big companies, recruiters are buried in applications. They use software, an applicant tracking system, or ATS, to filter through hundreds, sometimes thousands of candidates. They just don't have time to read what Daniel calls extra homework. Your resume has everything they need to make that first cut.
And hey, don't just take his word for it. The data speaks for itself. A LinkedIn poll found that a whopping 65% of hiring managers either don't want a cover letter or just flat out don't care. That's nearly 2 out of every 3 people making the decision.
And what about thank you notes? It's the same story. Get this. Daniel says he's been on over 10,000 hiring panels. 10,000! And in all that time, not once, not a single time, has he ever seen a decision come down to a thank you note. The choice is always made based on who you are and how you interviewed.
All right, let's talk about the one topic that stresses everybody out: money. There's this common belief that HR's #1 job is to get you for as cheap as possible. But is that really what's happening? Is the company trying to be your enemy in a negotiation? This is probably the biggest myth we're going to bust today. Believe it or not, Daniel says HR people love giving a great offer. Think about it. They want you to be excited. They want you to say yes. Their job is to close the deal, and a strong offer is the absolute best way to do that.
So if an offer does come in a little lower than you hoped, it's almost never a personal attack. It's just a business calculation. The real reasons are usually things you can't see, like a fixed budget that came from the finance department, or a rigid salary band for that specific role. Or sometimes paying you more would be unfair to the people who are already on the team.
Okay, so if you know HR isn't actively working against you, how do you successfully negotiate for a higher salary? Well, you have to change your entire mindset. It's not about what you think you deserve. It is all about clearly showing them the future value you are going to create for the company.
And to do that, you've got to speak their language. Here's a key piece of insider lingo: comp ratio. It's short for compensation ratio, and it's the internal formula they use to figure out where your salary fits on the spectrum for that role, from a total beginner all the way up to an expert.
This chart breaks it down perfectly. If your comp ratio is low, say around 0.8, it means you're less experienced, but you've got tons of room to grow your salary over time.
But if they hire you at or above a 1.0, you're already seen as a master, and there's not much room for future raises. Companies try to avoid that.
So what's the #1 mistake people make? Citing Glassdoor. Daniel is crystal clear on this. Companies pay millions of dollars for real-time verified salary data. They know that whatever you found online for free isn't the same, and bringing it up just makes your argument weaker.
So instead, you follow this simple 3-step plan. First, you focus entirely on the value you're going to bring. Second, you use specific examples you talked about in your interviews. And third, you connect those examples directly to a problem they told you they need solved. You're not just asking for more money, you're proving you're worth more.
And does this work? You better believe it. Daniel saw a candidate use this exact strategy. He brought up a specific problem they discussed in the interview and laid out exactly how he would solve it based on his past work. The company was so blown away, they upped his offer by $75,000. That's the power of this method.
So when you put this all together, what do you get? You get a fundamental shift in your mindset, a shift that makes your whole job search more strategic, more effective, and a whole lot less stressful.
And this right here might be the most important takeaway of all. A salary offer is not a judgment on your personal worth. It is a business decision based on a budget. The moment you can emotionally separate your self-worth from that number, you gain all the power. It's not personal, it's business.
So that leaves us with one final question to think about as you move forward. Are you going to get caught up arguing over a number? Or are you going to start a conversation about the incredible value you bring to the table? And look, if you want to go even deeper, there's a lot more to help you at JobSearch.Community. There's free content to get you started. You can become an insider and get access to all my content plus coaching. You can also purchase individual products and services too.